Hi, Kevin. Thank you.
Hi, Aneta. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for doing this with me. I'm very excited. I'm thinking maybe we can start by telling people a little bit more about you and your role at Brightflag.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. By the way, this is the first time I think that I've ever been on a Canadian podcast, so get to tick off another thing from my list.
Okay, that's cool.
So I'm the Chief Customer Officer at Brightflag. I've been with the company for over 6 years, and I'm responsible for all of our go-to-market, so marketing, alliances, sales, and customer success. I spend a huge amount of my time meeting with heads of legal operations, really anyone in a legal operations function, as well as general counsel and chief legal officers, talking about the evolving market for outside counsel engagement, legal technology and legal transformation more generally, how generative AI is impacting corporate legal departments, things like that.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome. And can you tell us, how did you even end up in this space? Because, everyone in legal ops has their own journey, and I'm just curious, how did you end up with Brightflag? And, even before that, how did you get into legal ops?
So my entire career has been running go-to-market and operations for high-growth cloud software companies. And in my two previous companies, meaning prior to Brightflag, I was responsible for the legal function as well as a bunch of other things. So I've had a lot of exposure to corporate legal, mostly around commercial contracts, IP, employment issues, given the scale of the companies. So I came into it with a very good I came into Brightflag with a very good understanding of what the corporate legal department outside counsel relationship tends to look like, but I wouldn't have described myself then, and I maybe still even now wouldn't describe myself as being in legal ops, which we can talk about. But
I can explain why I asked it in a moment. Yeah.
yeah. So I hired someone to run sales for me at the company that I was at before Brightflag. And then I decided that it was time to leave that company and take some time to myself and then think about what I was going to do next. So I left the company, I'm taking some time off, and the person that I had hired to run sales for me at this other company said, "Hey, I know these people who founded a company in Ireland, in Dublin, and I don't really know what it does, but they're looking for some help sort of scaling the business, especially in the US. Are you willing to talk to them and give them some advice?" And so I went into this conversation with the Brightflag founders thinking that I was just going to give them a little advice. It was going to be a brief call. They went into it thinking that it was a job interview. And here I am about 6.5 years later. So that's how I got to Brightflag.
Okay, so you nailed the interview that you didn't even know.
I guess. I don't know. You'd have to ask them.
No, I'm sure you did. You're there. I'd ask why you're in the legal ops space, only because I see that Brightflag is super invested in the legal ops community. You have all those resources and courses that you're dedicating to legal ops professionals. I understand it's because you have your own solution that helps legal ops professionals, but also it seemed to me like Brightflag is a little bit more invested in this community than other companies that I see out there. And that may be stemming from the fact that Brightflag has their own unique culture that I had the pleasure of experiencing when my previous company was implementing Brightflag as an e-billing solution. Maybe it's like a blend of that made me think that you guys are kind of like in legal ops in addition to being in tech.
So we're in the customer service business, right? I'm in the customer service business. Everybody at Brightflag is in the customer service business. And our customers are legal operations professionals for the most part. General counsel use Brightflag, attorneys use Brightflag, but the power users are legal operations professionals. And so our entire philosophy about growing the company and supporting the customers has been do things that help the individual people to succeed in their careers. And sometimes that means giving them the software that allows them to manage outside counsel in the most intuitive, efficient way possible. But sometimes it has nothing to do with that. Sometimes they aren't even a Brightflag customer yet, and what it means to support them is to, for example, give them guidance on how much they should be paid, right?
Yes,
so
I want to
the
touch on that too.
brand and the entire ethos of the company really is built around doing things that will help the individual people that are working in this industry, with the confidence that if they ever come across a situation in which our product could be helpful to them, then they're going to engage us at that moment and we'll be able to help them in yet another way.
And where do you think that philosophy is coming from? Is it? I assume it's coming from the top, so from the founders and the early employees, which I think you're one of the earliest employees in there. So do you think you guys somehow drive this culture to like all the other employees that you're hiring throughout the years? Is this how Brightflag developed into the business it is today, where it seems like everyone who works for you displays the same values? And I think that's hard to do, and I don't see that in like most companies out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Brightflag has always been very focused on making customers successful, even before I joined. And then when I joined, I made it an even bigger focus because I've been doing this for a long time, almost 2 decades now, not just at Brightflag, but in my career. So that's a lot of time. But on the other hand, like still all in the fairly recent history of software and buyer behavior and the way that companies want to buy and use and interact with software companies has changed a lot over that time. And I'm a really big believer in, Brightflag is B2B, right? We're a business, we're selling to other businesses.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I go back to what I said before. We're in the customer service business. We're selling to people. So yes, a company is paying us, but we're actually going straight to the individuals. Those are the people we're interacting with. Those are the people who are going to get promoted or get a compensation increase or be able to get a new role because we make them successful. And if we don't make them successful, then like their job might be at risk. They might not get that promotion. They might not get that compensation increase. So we take it extremely seriously to make them successful. And you're right that it filters down to the entire
Mm-hmm.
org. Every single person that we hire, we're making sure that these people genuinely prioritize the customer's result before anything else, including, if necessary, before Brightflag's result.
Yeah, and that's very admirable because really, like, you don't see this across the industry that much. Like, I really, when I think of companies that display similar values, I have a few that I can name, but Brightflag is definitely at the top. Is so during your hiring process, do you like kind of like screen for that you kind of want your people to come with that same sense and this similar values, or is it something that you then later on focus more on in training and just making sure they follow the certain procedure? But I would think that is probably something that you just screen for and make sure that the people you hire are the right people who display those values to begin with.
Absolutely, we're screening for it. We're also continuously reinforcing it. So every single day, our values, think long term, make every day count, win and lose together, embrace authenticity. Like all of these get tied back to making customers successful. But it has to start with the hiring process
Mm-hmm.
because, I think that if you're not prioritizing making customers successful, then long term, you are not going to achieve great things. But there are plenty of companies that are successful, even in spite of not maybe having a great reputation for customer service. We don't want to luck into it. We want to
Yeah.
ensure success for us, success for our customers. And that means that you have to get the hiring right. So, we'll ask customer success manager candidate, for example, tell us about a time that you did something that was in the best interest of the customer, but it wasn't in the best interest of you or your company, right? And they might say, well, the customer really needed this additional capability. And typically we would charge more for that capability, but we took a step back and we looked at the overall relationship and we were thinking long term about the benefit of having a relationship with this customer. And we made the decision not to charge them and to enable them to make them successful with the confidence that down the line, we would be able to grow our commercial relationship with the customer. So we're able to ask questions like that to understand, is someone going to jump to, well, I have to hit my target, so I'm going to just do the things that I need to do to take care of me? Or do they respond and say, I just have that confidence that if I do the right thing by the customer, I'm going to be fine?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I'm really glad you guys are doing it, and we could feel it as a old customer of yours. We felt it, even though we were just beginning our journey with you guys. But what was very important to us was that um, the attitude that we were getting from your people seemed genuine, because anyone can be nice, anyone can be like accommodating, but if it doesn't feel genuine, it hits different. And with your people, 100%, everyone I had encountered was just genuinely great. So
That was great to hear.
yeah.
Not surprising, but great to hear nonetheless.
Yeah, for sure. So, but speaking of that and of those values and how great it is at Brightflag currently, I heard that you guys were acquired by Wolters Kluwer, and I know this is a massive success. So, congratulations. But from the perspective of a customer and future customer potentially, because I just moved to a different company, will that change anything? That was my first thought. Like I was like, they're so great. Like it's great for them. I'm very happy for them. But I'm like, will it change and the way they operate? Will it change how the culture is at this company? Like, will the customers get a different treatment moving forward? Maybe more corporate, or are you confident that this will remain as is?
So I'm confident. This is probably not the answer that you're expecting. I'm confident that everything is going to continue to change. Like when I compare Brightflag today to Brightflag a year ago, or Brightflag 2 years ago, and certainly Brightflag 6 years ago when I joined, totally different company, right? Now, the key is for the changes to be in a direction that is favorable for the customer, right? And we've consistently done that. So, what's my level of confidence? I think I'll interpret the question a little bit differently. What is my confidence that all the things that are great about Brightflag today will continue to be great or will be even better in the future? It's very high, right?
Okay.
But it will, of course, change over time because we're building more product. We're building up even greater service capabilities. We have a huge initiative underway right now called Vision 2027 to drastically increase our use of generative AI across the company for the benefit of customers. And that will lead to changes, improvements, but changes nonetheless in how we interact with customers, how we build and ship product, all of these things. So, and at the end of the day, that is Brightflag, that continuous change and innovation and focus on the customer. Those things aren't changing, but how we achieve them, we're constantly looking for new and better ways to do it.
So I would then assume that your decision to get acquired is to scale the company and just be able to achieve more and faster, I assume?
Yeah, so I don't think that there's any company out there that is in a stronger position than Brightflag as a part of Wolters Kluwer to support as many legal teams as possible in being successful in managing their outside counsel and managing their matters and managing their vendors, their spend. Because we have the innovation, we have the customer service, we have the brand that people recognize, as you do, is focused on making the individual practitioners successful. And now we're a part of this larger organization, Wolters Kluwer, which is all about expert solutions, right? Like when you spend more time looking at Wolters Kluwer as an entire organization, you start to develop, I think, a very deep appreciation for their complete focus on, the highly educated, in air quotes, back office functions, legal, compliance, regulatory, tax, incredible solutions, incredible strength, and incredible expertise, right? So we can now tap into even more resources to make our customers successful.
Okay, that's great. And you'll, I assume, preserve the brand, right? Identity. It will still be Brightflag. It will not change its name. Okay.
Still Brightflag.
And your leadership mostly remains the same moving
Leadership
forward?
remains the same. Yeah.
Okay.
Every single person who was at
Mhm.
Brightflag before the acquisition is at Brightflag today, and there are no plans to make any changes.
Okay, so that gives me the confidence that actually everything will stay the same or better because all the key people are still there. So that's good
Yeah.
to hear. Yeah, amazing. Okay, so I wanted to maybe circle a little bit back. You mentioned the compensation survey, and I know that this is a huge ordeal. I think every year you're doing this survey. When did it start? How did it start? Is there a story behind it? I know this is your baby. Wanted to,
Yeah.
learn more about it.
There's a story behind it, although I'm not sure how interesting it is.
I'm sure it will be. Give it a try.
So we've done it 4 years now. Every year in March, we release our corporate legal operations compensation report. And the way that it works is every year we adjust the survey a little bit, but more or less it's the same because we've settled on something that really works. So we put it out there and hundreds, literally hundreds of legal operations professionals respond, and it's anonymous. And then we analyze the data and we put it into a report that identifies key trends and tells you, if you're head of legal ops based on the number of people in your legal department, how much should you be making? And if you're not the head of legal ops, how many years of experience you have. It tells you how much you should be making. It gets into things like gender pay gap, ethnicity pay gap, professional background pay gap. So like paralegals and legal administrators tend to be compensated less than people who have other professional backgrounds. So that's what it is. And you can download it at brightflag.com for free. The story behind how it came up, as I said, it's not super interesting. So I spent a lot of time, as I mentioned earlier, talking to people working in legal operations. And I started to notice that people were asking me all the time questions like, I think I'm underpaid, but I don't know for sure. Or I'm thinking about applying for this position at this other company. What do you think about the compensation? Questions like this. And I was starting to, in one-on-one conversations, answer those questions to the best of my ability, which was sometimes very high and sometimes non-existent. And I started to realize that a lot of my time was being spent on this. And also in college and university, I majored in statistics, which is very useful if you want to work for an insurance company and figure out like how much should the premiums be so that you still make money. But it's not super useful in other respects. Like I hadn't used any of my statistics knowledge in quite a while, but I realized, wait a second, this is surveying, sampling, and statistical analysis. And the people that matter the most to our business, people working in legal operations, this is a real pain point for them. Let's spin something up and try to answer the questions. And so it was an experiment, except that hundreds of people responded in the first year.
So, okay. So how many do you remember the first year?
The first year, I
Like
think it
more or
might have been
less.
like 300
Wow.
people participated in the survey. It was a lot.
That's huge for the first year.
Yeah. And now, like thousands of people download the report every year.
Wow. Okay. That's amazing. And so I assume again that the pay transparency hashtag came from there, from the same kind of.
Yes. And I'll tell you something that I haven't told anyone else in legal operations before, which is that I'm actually not like 100% on board with pay transparency.
Okay, because I see you tag it to like whenever I see like a job posting, you tag it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, he likes it that they were transparent about the pay.
Well, no. So let me explain. I absolutely like it when people post compensation ranges for job openings because huge amounts of time is wasted by people applying for jobs, and also huge amounts of time is wasted by people who are reviewing applications because there's just a fundamental mismatch between this applicant and the comp range, right? So by publishing those pay ranges, you eliminate all of that disconnect, and you're able to, I think, much more effectively get the right candidates, theoretically get the right candidates for the role that you have open. So I love that. And I comment, hashtag pay transparency, because I want to call people's attention to these jobs and show that legal operations is growing and it pays well. Increasingly, these hiring managers are actually telling you exactly how much it will pay. So all of that I love. What I don't like is that a lot of these companies, and it's not about heads of legal operations or general counsel necessarily, it's usually coming from HR, is that they're doing this because the law tells them they have to.
Okay, so wait, I
And
didn't know that.
so,
Is there a law that tells them they have to in US?
yeah, so a number of it's not a federal law, it's not a United States law, but many different states, like California, for example, or cities like New York City, have passed local legislation. And it varies from place to place, but at a high level, increasingly, more and more places in the United States require you to disclose the pay range under certain circumstances. So the problem is that a lot of this is being driven by the law and applying with the law, and HR does that. And it's not universally true, but what a lot of companies do is they give you the largest range that they can get away with giving you,
Okay.
while still being compliant with the law.
Okay, so that's not really cool. Yeah.
So it's not helpful when you look at one of these job descriptions, and yes, okay, it has the pay range in there, but it says, for example, this job pays between $100,000 and $300,000 a year. We're like,
Okay.
that is not, I guess it's technically pay transparency, but the candidates that are looking for $300,000 a year do not want the job if it's going to pay $100,000 a year. And most likely the candidates that are currently, making around $100,000 a year, again, most likely are not actually qualified to make $300,000 a year. So that bothers me. It also bothers me that it isn't always coming from a place of genuinely wanting to be transparent, but rather just, all right, we have to comply with the law, so let's just do this. So that's coming back to the report. That's the value of the report, right? Because the report isn't saying, hey, maybe it's 100, maybe it's 300. The report is saying this is actually what it is. And there are so many data points in the report that it's very statistically significant. And I can't remember the last time that a week went by without someone reaching out to me and saying, I just want to let you know that I used the report to negotiate a meaningful compensation increase for myself. And that's why we do it, because it genuinely helps people.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear, because this was my next question. I wanted to ask you if in real life you hear it's helping people. I was sure that it does, but you just confirmed that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's it's probably the most meaningful thing that I've done in my time at Brightflag, because at the end of the day, look, our job as a company is to help other companies to manage their engagements with law firms, to have visibility into them, to save time in managing them, to save money in engaging them. And that's very important. But, I'm of the opinion that companies exist to make people's lives better. And if you have to view through that lens. So I want to help customers realize, an X% savings on their outside counsel spends. But the motivator for me is that our users are going to be able to say, I delivered. I delivered for the company. And that's going to mean career progression for me, which connects to compensation. And then they can go and buy the house, start the family, take the vacation, like all of these things that at the end of the day matter more than work.
Yes.
And that's so that's how all of this ends up connecting.
Wow. See, I'm amazed, because again, what you just said now gives me a glimpse of, again, the values of Brightflag. Because yes, other people, other companies, they say that they also care about customer success, but I don't think as deeply, because you care about the end person. not even the company that you're selling to. You care about the end person who's implementing your solution, and that's like another level of caring to me. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's the number one way that we grow, right? Like you heard about Brightflag, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, through word of mouth.
Yeah,
Other
I
people
did.
are going to hear
I
about
did.
Brightflag through word of mouth because of, this conversation that we're having. Your customers, if the individual people aren't saying great things about you, your growth is going to stall, and then you're going to start losing customers and you're not going to be successful. So you just have to put them first. It's not a choice. I never viewed it as a choice. It just has to
Mhm.
happen.
Yeah, and you're so right. So the word of mouth, I learned about Brightflag at one of the legal ops. No, it wasn't even a legal ops conference. It was just like a conference for lawyers. I think it was Consulwell. And
Mhm.
one of the attendees there, we were talking about needing a e-billing solution. And she was like, Brightflag is great. And she just focused on the people. She started talking about the people. These people are great. To give them a call, they're so cool. Like they will give you a demo, no problem. Like we will like them. And she really focused just on you guys, not even on the solution itself, right? So I think that says a lot.
Well, the good news is that the product is just as good as the
It
people, but
is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, actually, I didn't have really the chance of really using it because we were about to finish the implementation, which was super fast, by the way, like 2 months, and we were almost there. And I changed jobs, so I think I'll have to do it again to have to have the
well,
full
look, I can tell
experience.
you that they are having a really good time using it after you left.
Yeah, I'm
Not
sure. I
because you
heard. No,
left,
I heard.
but in
I'm still
spite of
in.
your leaving.
I'm in touch with them, and yeah, I heard good things. I'm just saying, I myself didn't have the time like to go into the solution and like play with it, but I hopefully in the future I will.
Well, look, there are bright flag customers and there are future bright flag customers. There isn't a third category.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny actually. Okay, good to know. And now I would like to change gears a little bit and talk about your potential appointment to being a CLOC board member. So this is exciting. It's tell us a little bit more about that because what I saw on LinkedIn is that you were appointed to this role, as in you were encouraged to apply, and then you took some time and then eventually decided to give it a shot and apply, right? Like what made you want to do it? And two, now more importantly, I noticed that you announced you wouldn't even want to be paid for the role, and that's like huge and very like different. I don't think many people would do that. What made you want to decide not to be compensated for that? I'm sure it will take a lot of your time and effort. So tell us more about that.
So there are a few things going on here. First of all, CLOC, this is the first year that they have had a nomination process. Right. So previously, the existing board would sort of select new board members. And there's a new executive director, and he sort of encouraged the board to say, let's have an open nomination. And so, like, at least a few people nominated me because they told me that they had. I don't know how many people in total. And so I was one of, I don't know, a meaningful number of people who were nominated. And anyone who was nominated was asked, was encouraged to apply, right? And at the end of the day, CLOC is going to review the applications. They're going to pick a certain number of people to join the board. I don't know if that will be me or not. But when I first found out that I had been nominated, I remember, like, the email came in and I was like, wait, what? What's happening here? I almost thought it was spam for a moment. And so then, like, I thought about it, and a few of the people who had nominated me reached out and said, oh, yeah, like, I nominated you, and I think this other person nominated you, and here's why I think that it would be great. My hesitation was, first of all, I'm already a busy guy, right?
Mhm.
I've got a lot on my plate, but also, and this is probably what we call in sales head trash, right? I probably got in my own head and said, well, all of our competitors will really dislike it if I'm on the board. They won't think that I'm being neutral. And do I really want to, like, introduce that potential friction into the community? Again, the people who nominated me were like, Kevin, like, we know you. We know that you would not be using this for Brightflag. Like, you would be doing it to give back. Give it a try. And so eventually it's like, okay, well, I have some ideas about how CLOC could be even more effective. Let me give it a try. So again, like, we'll see if they choose me, I guess, or not, right? To answer your question about the compensation, there are three reasons that I made that commitment. In no particular order, I want to do everything that I can to remove the even appearance of any conflict of interest. And CLOC is funded in large part by sponsors.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't want one of our competitors to be like, well, if I sponsor this event and I have a booth, some percentage, even if it's a really, really, really small percentage, is going into Kevin's pocket. That
Mm.
doesn't feel like I didn't
Mm-hmm.
want that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Number two, I think that it's a great professional privilege and opportunity for someone to serve on the board of directors of the largest professional development organization in their industry. And I don't know, like, I'm not sure that it's the best use of $30,000 a year
This is the
uh,
amount? I didn't know.
to pay board members. Like, I think that they should be really excited about doing it for nothing or for much less than $30,000. Like, I would rather see that $30,000 personally. I would rather see that $30,000 go towards, getting people who are in between legal operations jobs
Mm,
or people who've just started a legal operations function, but their company can't afford for them to go to a CLOC event to subsidize that. Right.
that's
I think that that
amazing.
would be great for the community. It would also be great for Brightflag because then there are more potential customers there.
Yeah.
And then the last reason is, look, I've been very successful in my career, very fortunate. I've worked very hard, but I've also been very fortunate. And it just wouldn't feel right for me to take money that I don't need, that would be coming out of things that I think would be more impactful for people who really could benefit from it. So those are the three reasons that I made that commitment.
That's amazing. Really, it's like we need more people like you, Kevin, in this world for sure. Yeah, I'm not even joking. Yeah, it's great. It's great that you think like that. And when will we know if you got the position? Do you know? Is there a timeline?
I think there might have been a timeline in the
Hmm.
email, but it's escaping me right now. I think
Okay.
that the term starts in January, if I remember correctly, and maybe they said sort of interviews and selecting in August, September, but I don't remember exactly.
Okay. 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 So like basically next year anyway.
Yeah,
Hmm.
sometime in the next 3 to 6 months, I think. Yeah, maybe
Okay.
sooner.
Okay. Awesome. Well, good luck with that. I hope you get the seat because they need you.
Appreciate it.
I'm not sure if you can talk about it or if you want to talk about it, but are there any specific things that you would like to do as a member of the board, or maybe you want to keep it private for now so that other people don't steal your ideas before the other people
No,
who.
look, you know what? If someone else, first of all, I doubt that I have any truly original ideas here. Like, there are a lot of smart people in the industry, and I've talked to a lot of people about these ideas in the past. But also, I don't believe in like holding it in. The point is to make CLOC and legal operations better, not for me to get the glory. So, a few thoughts. First is I would love to see more money going towards supporting people who are trying to get their start in legal operations, right?
Mhm.
Because the future of any industry is more about the people who aren't in it yet than it is about the people who are in it already, right?
Mhm.
Like, I want to see CLOC have, you know, 10,000 member. I don't know exactly how many members it has now. So let's just say I want to see that it have 2 times as many members in 5 years as it does, or maybe even less time as it does today, right? So that requires meaningful investment to better understand the corporate legal department landscape. By the way, not just corporate, but the service delivery side as well. and then to create more programs at differing levels of sophistication and different types of engagement to grow the tent. So that's number one. Number two is to recognize that to truly transform the business of law, you have to expand beyond people who have legal operations in their title. So you have to really engage paralegals, practicing attorneys, general counsel, chief legal officers, and also the vendors, technology vendors, law firms. So if you think about like CLOC CGI from May of this year, lots of attendance from people in a legal operations role, lots of attendance from vendors, not a lot of general counsel and chief legal officers, not a lot of people who are a senior litigator and don't have management responsibility, they don't have technology responsibility, but they are absolutely critical to transforming the way that legal is done, right? And we need more of those people in the fold. So that's another thing that I would like to see. And then the third thing that I would say is just, I don't want to say better because I don't want to prejudge things that I don't have full visibility into. But based on what I have been able to see from the outside, as an attendee of some of these events, as a sponsor of CLOC, I'm not sure that all of the sponsor dollars are being spent in the best possible way. Right?
Okay.
CLOC has CGI has developed a reputation as being a good time.
Yeah, I heard the same.
And it should be a good time, but I don't think it's great if that's the first thing that a lot of people say. Right? I think that the first thing that people should say is, it is absolutely critical to my advancing in my career and achieving my objectives in my current role to be at a CLOC event, to participate in CLOC, whatever it is.
I agree with you.
And there are some decisions that have been made, and to be clear, some of them are made entirely by sponsors and it's not on CLOC, but some of them have been made by CLOC where it's about all the after dark stuff. And I know, to some degree, I might be preaching to the choir here because I know that you don't drink alcohol. I'd like to see less of the money spent on alcohol and food,
Yeah,
and more of the money spent on the highest quality professional development possible.
Yeah, 100% agree with you, because this is the reason why I didn't go to CGI. I was like, you know what, I don't need to go there to party.
Now, just to be clear, I think there is a lot of learning that's happening at CLOC in Las Vegas, and a lot of people do really meaningfully benefit from it professionally. I just think that can be amped up even more.
Okay, see, so I may be wrong here, because I've never been. I only heard from other people who went this year, and that was their impression.
Well, but that's kind of my point, right? Is you spoke with someone or a few people where the first thing that they said was, it was a good time, it was a party.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that we make a series of changes so that it's far more likely that the next time you talk to someone, the first thing they say was, I learned a ton.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then if they say after that, also, it was a really good time, fine, that's great.
That's what I mean.
Right?
That's great.
But the order has to switch.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. Are there any conferences this year that you're planning on going? Just so if people here would want to speak with you in person, see you or something, they know where to go. I know you go to lots of those conferences. I've seen you at one.
I do. I do go to a lot of them. I have been trying. Look, I love being on the road, being in front of customers, future customers, the team, of course. It gives me a lot of energy. And it also helps me to better understand what's happening, right? What are people really interested in right now? What might be changing that we need to respond to? But it is a very big commitment. It's draining. I think people see me at these events and they're like, oh, I don't drink coffee or tea. So people think that sometimes that I'm this kind of machine that's able to maintain this energy without all of these stimulants. the reality is like I close the door to my hotel room at the end of these days and I am completely brain dead, you know, like brain dead and possibly body dead as well. So I'm trying to very slightly rebalance how
Hmm.
much time I spend on the road so that
Yeah.
I can just take a little better care of myself.
Yeah.
Uh, but I will probably be at quite a few events over the second half of the year. And if you go to brightflag.com/events, you can see like everywhere that the great team will be. And I will show up at some of them, I promise.
Okay, sounds good. And to those people who maybe would like to get Bright Flag, how should they get in touch with you guys? Also through your website, or is
Yeah, you
there a
can go to
specific?
brightflag.com and there's a big button in the upper right corner, get a
Yeah.
demo. You can click that. You
So,
can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn and I'll be happy to introduce you to somebody.
mm,
The key is we just want to help people to make the best possible decision, right? If you come to Bright Flag and you say, for example, Kevin, I listened to you on this podcast and Annette had great things to say, like really enthusiastic about this. And then we have a conversation with them and our reaction is, we just don't think that this is something you need to spend money on right now. We'll tell you that. Like we don't want customers where it doesn't make sense, right? Because that's not good for anybody. So, but that's how, yeah, brightflag.com, click the
okay.
demo button.
Sounds good. So I actually have another question now because I'm trying to determine if it makes sense for the current company I work with now. What would you say the criteria are? Like, do you need to have a very high spend on litigation in order to make it make sense? Do you need to have a high volume of invoices? What is a high volume of invoices that would like? Is it? I
Yes.
guess hard questions now.
No, it's not a hard question, but of course the answer is going to be a little bit different depending on the circumstance. But the easiest answer that I can give is that if you're spending at least $2 million a year with outside counsel, it's a
Mhm.
no-brainer, right? The ROI will absolutely be there. If you're spending less than $2 million a year with outside counsel, but more than a million, let's say, then there might still be the value there, especially if you're growing quickly, but you want to be a little more thoughtful about sort of like, is the juice worth the squeeze? If you're spending less than $1 million a year with outside counsel, it probably isn't the right time yet. Not definitely not, but probably not. And again, the key question there will be, how quickly are you growing? So if you're pretty steady state business and year in and year out, you're spending like $1 million a year with outside counsel, like we'll be happy to show you the product and talk to you about it. But when we give you the price, you're probably going to say, we can probably do without this for a while.
Mm.
But if 2 years ago you spent $500,000, last year you spent $1 million, this year you're going to spend $1.5 million, you should probably get something like this in because growing companies have growing legal spends. Like it really is that straightforward.
Yes, makes sense. And to those again who don't have an e-billing solution in place yet, but maybe are thinking of getting one in the future, like us right now, is there anything that we can do to prepare for the future so that the transition to a solution is easier? Because I'm assuming like we would need to have all of the data in one place. So like at least an Excel tracker, right? Is there anything beyond that that we should be thinking of so that the transition is smoother?
So I think the most important thing for legal departments that don't have a system yet and are thinking about putting their first system in place, it's not about gathering the information.
Hmm.
It's about reaching a consensus that we can and want and need to do better. If you have that internal motivation to improve, that's the biggest hurdle.
Mhm.
Like you can find the data. We help you to collect the data. We help you to establish the best practices. And other vendors can help you with these things too, not just Brightflag. But if you don't have that conviction on your own that this is something that we can and should and need to do better, that's when it's tricky.
Okay, that makes sense again. Okay. Okay, well, thank you so much, Kevin. I think people would learn a lot here from our conversation. And I had a really good time speaking with you. I
Me
hope we
too.
can do it again in the future, or maybe I'll bump into you at one of the conferences or anywhere else.
Definitely. We'll do it in person next time.
Okay, sounds good. Once again, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Annette. I appreciate it.
Thanks.